He mouse slipped.
Oh, and Hikaru there, celebrating. Magnus mouse slipped, blundering into that queen. What an end. And Hikaru Nakamura takes, and he does. Hikaru with the black pieces, and he will have 9 minutes. How much did he bet? 10 seconds? No, 17. 9 minutes and 17 seconds. Magnus Carlsen starts with 15 minutes. The English opening. We've seen Magnus do this before today.
Yeah, we've seen it before, and it worked extremely well against Levon Aronian. And will lightning strike twice? That's the question. 9 minutes against Magnus Carlsen. Most of us wouldn't be able to handle it. But here we go. Nakamura clearly has done his preparation. He would have been watching that match earlier today that Magnus had. And, OK, Magnus just feeing Kettering. Black is the first to castle. Black can actually wreck the white pawn structure right now. I'm surprised by this choice.
Take on c3 with that bishop. The pawn structure is ruined. Double isolated pawns. We keep talking about how we don't like those, but we love ourselves a good bishop pair. So here's the big moment.
Third time, I may need to make a move like play h6, but maybe he's going to tuck the bishop on f8 if it's attacked, because we need to move it somewhere. He couldn't wreck the structure, but he doesn't know exactly what he's doing afterwards, right? And we're going to get rid of the bishops here. Ooh-wee, what is this? Knight d5. This is getting spicy already.
Yeah, wow. Magnus saying, OK.
Evaluate where that really leads. Or will Magnus recapture with the bishop?
If he trades all the knights, it just leads to an advantage for white. And this is looking like it's happening here. I don't like this for Hikaru. It's
away from completing development, really, in a way, which he does. Bishop e3. My rooks are now connected, and I can bring the a rook to the c file here. Just try to play this position as the space. I really wanted to have the bishop on the long diagonal, but, you know, it's not really feasible, especially if I can play f6 or even bishop e5 to trade more pieces off. So you want to keep a few pieces on. He plays rook d1, maybe a potential d6 later on if possible. b6 for bishop e5.
Squares come to your mind. Queen g4, queen d2.
Yeah, he just retreats the queen. I think left side of the board, the queen side. Black has 4 pawns to white's 3, but unfortunately for black, those pawns are not so mobile, and that is going to be a problem for Hikaru to deal with, because if that bishop safely moves away from e3 for white, watch out. That pawn will go up to e4 afterwards, maybe f4 to follow, and then the pawns are rolling. So I think that white's pawns are just better placed, and Hikaru will have his work cut out for him.
Yeah, he does. And, OK, he's playing on the side he's strongest. Makes a lot of sense. He pushes this pawn forward. He's saying, OK, these two will never advance at least. Maybe this bishop will try to make Robert's plan slightly less feasible by putting some pressure on this backward e-pawn. But Magnus is saying, OK, look at my rooks. They're so much more efficient than yours right now. This is the big target in the position. And watch out for Magnus as well. At the right moment, trying to trade off these bishops just to highlight the weakness of this backward pawn. Still early days, of course, but lots of maneuvers here. And maneuvering positions actually cost players more time on the clock. So in terms of the Armageddon, great strategy for Magnus. This one is not going to fizzle out anytime soon. We won't see queen trades anytime.
These matches, too, as well. I mean, people always like, hey, these guys should play. Hikaru and Magnus should play. Mini games in Bullet, people want this to happen, and bishop f4 on the board.
More trades offered, and that's exactly what we're talking about,
crazy.
that Magnus needs to keep more pieces on the board. Is this a surprising move?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and there's a trap involved in this move. If black gets greedy here, Hikaru's calculating it. He will have to burn some time here, but if you get greedy and grab a pawn, this backfires instantly. Your queen is hit immediately and skewered.
Yikes.
Queen takes queen. There's an intermediate check. Zwischenzug, Zwischenschuck, as they say in German, in between check and when the king moves, the queen drops. White has won a rook. So Hikaru spots that, of course. He moves his bishop. And now Magnus will be thinking, firstly, he can step his pawn forward, free of charge. You can start advancing on the side you're stronger. We talked about those two halves of the board. Secondly, there might be sacrifices on this square at the right moment. And yeah, I would be worried for Hikaru if white can get away with that safely. First of all, the pawns start advancing. The avalanche begins. And, OK, after a trade, look how backward this pawn is on c7. Eternal weakness for black.
That's ugly.
Oh. Yeah. Wow, this looks like bad news. And Magnus there hinting or doubling up on the C line, targeting the weakness that, David, you just pointed out. Is this position more dangerous than it looks for Hikaru, Robert?
Hikaru wouldn't want this position a classical game against Magnus Carlsen. You give them both an hour, I still think that white wins this position a large percentage of the time, because the position for black, you're just shuffling back and forth. White can make progress. And speaking of progress, throw the h pawn up the board. There could be an attack because black is saddled with this weakness on c7. Every move that's being played is actually growing the advantage for Magnus.
Yeah, it's like the board is cut in half. You mentioned those two halves. White is totally in control on both flanks now. And black his army will be stretched. Later on, they will be overwhelmed, most likely, because black's pieces will be tied down to that weak c7 pawn, the backward pawn we highlighted, and Magnus will switch his attention to the other flank too. And also, 6 extra minutes. That has grown since the start of this game, the time advantage. Nakamura wincing, not enjoying his last move, but he needed to put pawns on dark squares. He has no dark square bishop. He needs some control. Ugly chess.
That's a girl's move.
Well, when you put the pawns on dark squares, your light squares become weaker. If that bishop on g2, if you could pick it up and put it on the square f5, I think black would be toast. But unfortunately, that bishop is behind its own wall of pawns for the moment. At some point soon, we may see that bishop head to h3, push that pawn to g5, and I know James likes to say we live because that bishop may kill black's chances with a checkmate.
Absolutely. You're going to play something like bishop b7, but you can't even play that because it breaks the connection of the pawn on c7. He plays g5 anyway. Break it up. Open up shop, big fella.
Wow.
Open up.
He's really going for it, not
Hi.
holding back at all. H4, G4, G5, what momentum, and it looks like the rooks are ready to get into the attack as well. Every single piece perfectly placed for this.
Yeah, looking great for white. However, Hikaru hits Magnus with a threat. The white queen there needed to step back. That was an important tempo gainer. And now black has gone up a pawn temporarily, but watch out for this white bishop. It's coming, James.
What the? You can play that?
You can take on C7 now?
You can get away with that?
Wow, white's rook can just grab that backward pawn that we've been talking about. This looks fantastic.
Does it? He does it, David.
Yep, and after this rook trade, we're going to be left with a position, still level material, but black's king's so open. White's rook is coming into the 7th rank.
It just feels like a speed chess move because now Hikaru has to figure out after the queen goes up to h7 with rook c7 check coming next. Where is your king going to? It's going to be a quick checkmate. So I think this is a very nasty move to face when you have a few minutes in your clock.
Really instructive. You find that move by looking at your opponent's replies, your opponent's plans and their hopes after rook check. As Robert says, actually the king is pretty safe temporarily on g8. So cut that one out, and Magnus is paused. He's not playing the most natural move in the position, this rook check. Therefore, he might find the even stronger queen h7, taking control of the escape square. That might be a killer. Nakamura, with 4 minutes on his clock, he will struggle to find a defense to that move, queen h7.
That's a strong move.
Wow.
With the queen or the rook. I think he does it. He goes for it. Robert.
Need an hour on your clock to defend this one, but look, Hikaru doesn't have that luxury. Okay, he brings his rook across.
Is that it dislodges the queen, right? Let's show that on the board. Pawn e5 is nice. I mean, if queen takes, then you might be in some trouble here. Yeah, engine automatically goes up. And maybe like a queen something. h5, queen c2 maybe?
Queen c2 is nasty, James.
Yeah, because you have to defend and you got queen c6 and rook check. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
James, you're on fire.
I am a Jedi. Sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I forget. But it is, that's nice. But let's go back to pawn takes. After e5, what happens on pawn takes?
Ooh,
yeah, and this is the problem I had.
Same idea, maybe. Just rook c7 check and queen
maybe rook
c2.
c6 first. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Same
you're right.
idea,
Yeah.
but the point is the queen comes back to c2. So, James, you're mixing offense and defense, and that's nasty.
I appreciate that, Jedi. I
Beautiful
appreciate
stuff.
that. Yeah, Big Robert, I'm trying to get like you. Okay, so, yeah, that's nice. Let's see what happens.
One thing I want to point out, yesterday Hikaru blundered mate in 1 on the f8 square. Now he's learnt from that.
What's up, y'all? What's good? We here. What up, what up?
I think the world just loves to see Magnus and Hikaru battle it out, and this is why we love it. Both players bringing...
Queen takes pawn is a killer blow if black gets time for it. Queen takes pawn. That's why rook f8 was such a nice defense for Hikaru. Now, how does Magnus deal with this? You have to take a time out. You don't really want to have to retreat the white queen to a passive square. What would she be doing here? I don't think she's doing much. And what else? You simply have to do something. Do you bring your rook back? But that feels wrong. He's checked and traded off the rooks. And we're in a queen endgame. This is the current position.
The worst is over.
No passed pawns for white.
Worst is over, man. This might be a draw.
Yeah, and it's equal pawns, and if it's a draw, that means Hikaru actually takes the match. He knocks out Magnus Carlsen to go into the grand final. Magnus there missing a big opportunity, but Hikaru is going to have to defend this.
Quality of the pawns, and if white can win a pass pawn there, if we just show this line, queen b2, check, take on d6 with check, and the important point is the d5 pawn will run to the other side. We'll see a second queen appear. White will win this game. So Hikaru sees this, and now he's deep in the think tank. He really doesn't have that much time. Magnus actually can flag Hikaru here. 3 minutes is not that much compared to your opponent's 5.
This is tough. This actually is tough. I mean, queen end games are the hardest ones. And go through your, open up your Devoreski page 687, right? When you get there, and it's going to tell you about the queen end games that are very hard, like this one. But yeah, queen e5 I thought was a move, but like it's definitely difficult. Very hard to defend this, actually.
Yeah, central.
Because if I can get my king to maybe f4 and then take, yeah, so that's not going to be allowed now. So maybe just king g6.
Magnus spent a long time on that move, though, over a minute. And with only a few minutes left with Armageddon format, that it could be vital later. Now the black king advances. White's pawns now under.
White's king isn't that active. It looks like Magnus is.
Even if he starts throwing this game, his advantage out the window, he needs to start making moves more quickly. Hikaru would punish Magnus if the colors were reversed on the clock. Magnus needs to do the same.
Yeah, Magnus, he's a great speed player, of course, but his mouse skills, I don't know if they match Hikaru's. And, okay, still extra minute on the clock. He does fix the structure on the queen side, and the black king runs in that direction. Actually, if the queens disappear, Magnus has great winning chances right now. Can he force that in a favorable situation? Advancing, leading from the front, the white king.
I was not expecting that move.
Yeah, king f3 definitely is a nice move because I'm like zugged out, meaning Zugzwang. Like, what do I do as black? I just have to shuffle back and forth.
It is, yeah, queen f5 was a big threat, and g6, a huge blunder. What did Hikaru miss here? What is the winning move?
It might have been
It's
queen
not
e6.
that?
It might have been queen e6.
What was the
and
winning
trade
move?
him in king g4.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Forcing the queens off was winning. James is right.
Right.
Just a couple of moves ago, this was not obvious at all for a human.
I said a lot of Devereski there, you know, pawn in games, right? Queen e6 takes, and then king g4, king f6, and I think he's zugged out, f3.
Let's quickly show that, James. Queen swap, and as you mentioned, it is Zugzwang. This position, black needs to defend his pawns, and here white can just wait. For example, black's king can even hit this one, and you have another waiting move. You just push this pawn.
And then take the pawn.
Yeah.
And GG, you win. Wow. Sick.
And second event in a row where Hikaru is fortunate because against Wesley So in the Air Things Masters, this was exactly what was happening in a queen endgame. A queen trade could have led to a win for Wesley, but I think this is not over for Hikaru. Magnus is going to keep the game going. Look at the clocks. Magnus is up nearly 40 seconds, and the defensive task, just because the king is run to the queen side, it's not over for Hikaru.
Yeah, this one, he's going to have to defend backs to the wall for the rest of this game, at least another 50 moves. And yeah.
Another big king move. I mean, these playing unexpected king moves, first to f3, now to b3, and Hikaru gives up d6.
He wants to take e4.
Is there a...
This is not
Make a
good.
move.
Unless he has a draw by force, he is going to be in trouble of being flagged.
You have to check.
It's a bullet game now.
King
You
a3.
have to go king a3. Only move.
Correct.
Where
Like
is the
again,
draw?
b3.
b3.
No more
that's all.
checks.
But queen c3, does queen c6 check? I don't know what happens to the queen trade there.
What about centralize and then third mate, right? And then check everywhere else.
Yeah.
He has a check, but then I run a6.
He's got to work it out with less than a minute on his clock. Can he afford a queen trade? Can he threaten checkmate, trap that white king somehow on the edge of the board? He needs to find an accurate move. If he makes a slip now, Hikaru, he's losing.
Queen b1.
I think, though, there's always queen c6 back to c3. So he goes here. I think Magnus can like queen c6 check and bring his queen back to defense. As long as you don't allow a perpetual check, he can flag Hikaru.
Yeah, he can flag Hikaru. Just give a couple of checks first, a couple of quick checks, gain time on the clock, and then retreat that white queen.
Yes.
There's no increment though.
Time gets closer. Hikaru does get a little bit stronger here. Yep, there it is. He pushed and immediately made a move here.
Oh,
wow.
But that move, the eval bar went up. So white can maybe, well, queen e1. You have the a1 square covered. You protect your pawn. You may just start throwing that past one off the board. He plays it.
That's gross.
And you've got the b4 square covered as well. No checks for black.
Just push the pawn. Just throw it.
Oh,
He
my
does
goodness.
it. He finds it in 30 seconds for Hikaru. Can he stop the e-pawn from advancing, or is this just game over?
I think he's going to block it with his queen, but then he has no more checks.
Yeah, and then the black queen will be purely passive. It's going to be one-way traffic. The white queen is going to activate herself now, and you can play forever this position, Magnus, but 5-6 seconds in it. Wow, it's all about the clock now. It's a winning position for white, we think,
Oh
or
my
at least
God.
a better position, but is it enough on the clock?
Apparently he's made a mistake, but he is up a few seconds. This is going to come down to the wire,
Make
everybody.
a move, Hikaru. He does it. What?
I mean, he can't trade queens. The black king would be too close.
King e7.
Yeah.
I mean, d8. On the move, right?
19
Any
seconds.
safe
He's
square.
going to flag him.
E6.
Any safe square for black?
Perpetual coming.
Oh my God.
Oh, queen c2 check. So you have a counter check if black checks on the second right. So he's checking in diagonals. Wow, king b1.
Got to move.
Oh, no more checks.
Oh, and what's happened there?
What happened?
We see a reaction. Magnus is mouse.
Oh, no!
Oh my God. Did he pre-move?
He mouse slipped.
Oh, and Hikaru there celebrating. Magnus mouse slipped, blundering into that queen. What an end. And Hikaru Nakamura takes this match.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
What a finish. We didn't
Wow.
expect that. We thought it might be decided on the board, decided on the clock, but not with a mouse slip. And Magnus, yeah.
Man, furious. Furious.
Chess is harsh.
Chess is hard, bro.